Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range. Okay, so this is for Clementine and Otis. Okay, this week's episode is brought to you by Kingpin Skate Shop. So Kingpin stock only the best brands like Baker, Antihero, Hockey, Girl, Chocolate, FA, and much, much more. They have all your hardware needs sorted, and they have a very carefully selected apparel and shoe range. They literally are the best skate shop in the world. And they laugh every time I say that, but I feel it. And they literally ship worldwide as well. So get over to kingpinstore.com. That's KINGPINSTORE.com. Use the code THT at checkout. You'll get the 15% discount. Next up, non-government organisation Habitat for Humanity is a cause that's very close to my heart. They've been very supportive of finding emergency housing for bushfire victims here in Australia, but they're also worldwide Habitat for Humanity, and they're helping displaced people find shelter and build resilience through supplying them with the fundamentals that they need to sustain life. They're an amazing organisation, and they need volunteers. And for you as a listener, as a human, this is an amazing opportunity to be of service to your community, connect with others, help others, and it will make you feel better about yourself. So head over to habitatforhumanity.org. That's habitatforhumanity.org, and find out how you can be of an assistance. But donating money is always helpful, but donating your time is just precious. So let's Terrible Happy Talks. Terrible Happy Talks.
Yeah, good to be here, man. Whoa.
Submissive dominant lifestyle.
3, 2, 1. Alright, let's do this. Today's guest is Ricky Roberts III. Ricky is, dude, I've got to say, Ricky, that's a rad name. Okay, Ricky Roberts III just rolls. Ricky is a skateboarder, motivational speaker, and author of 8 books. After almost being killed at age 17 in a street fight, Ricky has dedicated his life to his personal healing journey and sharing what he has learned along the way. Ricky's latest book, Thank You Skateboarding, pays homage to the gift of having a passion and the positive ways it can contribute to all aspects of your life. This week, Ricky is with me live from his home in St. Petersburgh, Florida, USA, to share his journey, experiences, challenges, and hopes for the future. Mr. Ricky Roberts III, welcome.
Yo, love it, man. I'm super happy to be here. Thanks for having me on, Shan. I'm stoked to talk to you and grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, man. Thanks for your time, Ricky. And first question I want to ask you, what does a day in the life of Ricky Roberts III look like at the moment?
At the moment, waking up to, we have a 18-month-old. 19, I'm losing track, but 19 months, somewhere around there, 17 months, something like that. Anyways, it's waking up. He comes in the bed in the middle of the night, so he's usually waking my wife and I up in the morning and doing something awesome and adorable. Just kind of getting the day started that way. And then it depends on how our shift's broken up, because we're splitting parenting time where I do my thing and my wife does her thing. She's an independent artist. She has a tattoo studio, so it's we both do our own thing. But on those days, it's daddy daycare all day when she's there, in the days that she's not, I try to get a session in first thing in the morning, and then do things that I need to do, emails or whatever I might need to follow up on, for the day. and writing's a part of every day, reflection. Yeah, so the days are different. Right now I'm trying to recalibrate everything and get into like the right routine with now being a father and working through that journey. In itself is a special journey. So it's fluctuating quite a bit these days.
18 months with a child is a very interesting time as a parent, because you're now in this place where you've actually maybe suffered from a fair amount of sleep deprivation. And
Yeah.
I find that for me, that can really weigh on your behaviors and your moods. Like, what are you
Sure.
doing? What are you doing personally to like cope with such a dramatic change in your life?
Yeah, and thanks for saying that, because honestly, like, the onset, of having our child, when that first, I thought I was mentally and emotionally prepared. I've done a lot of work myself over the years and gone through that journey. But when we like had our child, it just triggered all types of things I wasn't expecting. So my mental health took a spiral. And so I was like that daily struggle to try to keep my head in the right place, and then also, be a stable emotional support for my wife and obviously for our new child. So it's been a journey, man. It's really a lot of unexpected stuff came up for me that I've been managing and working through. And then also, you say what I do to cope. It's like full into the things that help keep me going, like skateboarding and journaling, art. My wife and I balance it out to where we both try to get time for ourselves to do the things that we need to do to keep our cups full, and still trying to make sure I'm out at getting the sunset in a couple days a week, just to have that silent reflection by myself. And, and it's hard with a child, because when I take full like blocks of time away, I feel like I'm neglecting supporting my wife. I feel like I'm neglecting supporting my child and being there. But then I know if I don't, it is what it is. I need to put my mask on and keep my oxygen right, because I can spiral pretty dark and deep,
It's a good analogy, like the mask on, first, because
Yeah,
really, without self-care, you're no good to anyone else, correct?
absolutely.
And I guess a question that I wanted to ask, and you started to touch on it, is, and if you don't mind me asking if I've crossed the line here, but have you noticed
And you can ask anything you want. I'm happy to share, and with the intention of it's an honor to share our journeys. If it impacts someone else and helps give someone permission to work through their own thing, it's all worth it. It's all part of it. So I'm happy to talk about wherever the conversation goes.
Legend, Ricky? Yes, thanks, brother. I appreciate you for that, man. But my question is, have you noticed a change in your relationship with your wife? How has having a child impacted on that?
Yeah, that's something that we have to continuously check in with each other. It's like, look, we see right now the forecast of how easily we can grow apart, because the things that we were used to in our relationship as a functioning, healthy relationship between us two is completely changed. There's a whole nother life involved that is very important that we cater, love, nurture to the full capacity. So it's like being real mindful of taking the time for each other and with each other, and finding that place. So it's been different. We've had to adjust. We're not sitting there at dinner together anymore talking about each other, or our feelings, or what we do. Still make the time to do that, but it takes more intention, I think. And I can see very easily how, if you're not proactive in certain things as a couple with a child, it can take a toll on the relationship,
Yeah, I guess I wanted to ask that question because you know, you see it a lot in our societies where, children just put a huge strain on a relationship that I think many people may have felt was solid, and then along comes this amazing little human that has its own agenda, and we have really no control over it. And I think sometimes we find ourselves in this survival mode that we didn't expect to find ourselves in, and straight away, like it's easy for couples to turn on each other and not support each
absolutely.
other.
And you have to like bring back to like the keeping the eye on the prize with just like being your best for the child, and also for each other, and just the love that you share that brought you together in the first place. And I keep from the very beginning, I've been telling my friends and stuff like, man, I'm just so grateful that I'm experiencing this with my wife. It's like saying, because of our relationship and the health of our relationship, that, each one of us put a lot of time into ourselves before we got together in our life. So it was like, but it doesn't mean that it didn't stop there. It's like, it's still kind of like just been this ongoing work. But anyways, back to what I was saying is like, I just can't imagine. It's hard for me to imagine going through the process of having a child and adapting to the things that are going on within me without that stability in what my wife and I have, which I'm unbelievably grateful for.
Yeah, like as a new father, like I think it's really scary for men because we haven't quite bonded with the child like the mother has. The mother's has had the baby in her womb for 9 months. They've been bonding. And I know for me, I felt like this sense of rejection a little bit, and just a little bit once the baby was born, and my wife at the time was breastfeeding like constantly, and the baby becomes so dependent on the mother. I felt I did, and I know I've had other friends say the same thing. I just felt this period of just being like really lost, and what's my purpose in all this? Like, am I even needed?
Yeah, dude.
I had to keep. You go.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it was heavy, and it was a really lonely time at first, and then it starts to obviously change. But can you sort of maybe like tell me? I want to go back now to where you grew up and your experiences as a child. So where did you grow up in your younger years?
First, before we go to that, I just want to thank you for saying that, because exactly like what you said about feeling lonely and all those things, there were periods of the cycle where, in the earlier months where like I felt like guilty, and I felt shamed by the way I was feeling. And I'm like, man, I'm almost selfish for feeling what I felt. And then like just collectively from the outside, like society, it's like this expectation of how you're supposed to be feeling and how you're dealing with this transition in your life. And like, it was like strangely enough, like a lonely time to adjust to all that. Obviously, like the fears and inadequacies or whatever, but specifically speaking to your thing about, the mother bonding for all of this time, and then this life comes and like you're just supposed to click all of a sudden emotionally to being a father to this young being, and whereas like the mother had bonded all this time, where this like bonding starts now for you. And then sometimes, like you were saying, feeling that rejection and feeling like, what do I even do? Like I'm kind of useless in all of this. I'm not like feeding him. I'm not like, but you want to be, but then there's parts of me that's like, I had to constantly work through the tendency to withdraw emotionally. So like constantly like pulling myself back in emotionally, so I don't just like close up, But anyways, it's like that's just a whole. Thank you for saying it, because it's like it feels good to hear that validation of you going through what you did with the experience. And I'm sure a lot of men can relate on many levels, you know.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing it, because I just feel like a lot of dudes don't talk about that, especially that early period of just feeling isolated, and also they're in this position where like they don't really know how to be a father yet. I don't think like I mean it seems to me, and I'm generalizing, that women really do have a maternal instinct. I've watched
man,
it.
it's beautiful to watch.
Oh man,
it's so beautiful and humbling to watch, where it's just like, man, I can't.
Yeah.
And I would talk with my wife about that a lot, where I'm like, I'm sorry, I feel guilty, but certain things, they're not as easy for me as they are for you. And like, it just feel like it's a learning process, man. It's not natural for me to, I don't know. I mean, I've been affectionate, all that things, but just certain parts of it, but
that's right.
cheers up to the females and all the mothers out there. That's another thing. I thought I had respect for mothers before the experience, and after like my wife gave birth and like just the whole process of pregnancy, I started to tell mothers, like, I feel like I want to walk around and just kiss every mother's feet, like literally bow down and put my forehead to the ground, kiss your feet, because respect.
Dude, I mean it too. Like I see women in a completely different light now, and I just see them as these like mystical beings now. I know that sounds a bit over the top, but
it is mystical.
you witness a childbirth and what unfolds in that process, and what a woman does to achieve that. I mean, aside from the fact they've nurtured something in their body for 9 months, and then they go through that process, it's like it really is a trip. It's a trip, and I don't think until you experience it and you witness it, and it's your child, like, you're just never really going to understand it. And I mean, I thought I understood, but I just know I don't understand.
So, dude, I kept telling my wife afterwards, I was like, so, like, because she had a long, drawn-out labor. It was, I forget how many hours, but it was a couple days, like 40-something, whatever. It was long. And I was like, if I go real extensively skating, or having the past different times where I start getting cramps or whatever, those come and go in like whatever, a couple minutes, and then it's gone. I'm like, you just did that for hours and hours, like getting a minute, 2-minute break in between, couple 10 minutes, whatever, but like constant cramps, like without even being able to imagine how bad pain. But anyways.
Anyway.
Yeah, good chat on that. Thank you.
I love, because like, again, I'm a father, and it's really overwhelming at times. And so when I have these discussions with other, especially new fathers, like it gives me this sense of peace, and it sort of makes me feel like I'm not alone in it. And that's the beauty of your honesty there, Ricky. So thanks, man.
And and on that note, if someone listens that's like at the beginning of the stages, I just can, like, I can't encourage people enough to, like, just be good to themselves, be kind to themselves, be patient, be compassionate, and do things that are going to help keep you inspired. But it's not even about a choice. It's a necessity to keep your head right through it all. It just makes you a better individual, a better human being, and better for the whole situation. I think on both sides.
I agree, man. I agree. So listen, I want to hear a little bit about you, and where did you grow up exactly?
St. Pete, Florida. Grew up. My father left when I was about 11, somewhere around there, 11 years old, say. And from there, my mother was a single mother, and just kind of went from different relationships, bouncing around, and didn't really, she had her own issues from childhood that she never healed and dealt with. So that got projected into her relationships and what she would settle for, and her belief of, I think what she deserved or not deserved. And so I've witnessed abuse with my mother and father, and then I witnessed abuse over and over again with different relationships. So I had to grow up quick. I had younger siblings that I felt like I had to watch out for against these with just random dudes or whatever it was, different relationships. So kind of became pretty angry and bitter and had a lot of rage that projected or manifested itself in the world through violence, oftentimes fighting a lot. Of course, I had skateboarding, or when that came into my life, and that was a huge outlet. But the other outlet was physical violence. I just felt better for some weird reason if like I was hurting someone else, or like I was in a fight where like my life was in danger. I just felt that sense of like, it just felt normal to me in a lot of ways. So that's a whole journey of it itself, but it's just kind of like a quick snapshot. A lot of poverty, just dealing with all types of, circumstances that were trying as a young person that caused a lot of things in my life that I had to undo as an adult and work through and process through.
Well, how have you done that? How have you worked through that I guess childhood trauma? I mean, that term gets thrown around a lot, but it's obvious that that's what you experienced. So
yeah,
what tools have you developed to deal with that?
It's crazy is like with childhood traumas, it's become so normal to witness people getting beat up and fights and like things breaking and drugs and like just chaos that you don't even like, it's wrong deep down, but it just becomes your normal. So it wasn't until it wasn't until later on in life where I had a near-death experience that triggered the awareness in me to look at my life and realize like really where all of this stuff was coming from, how I ended up into that point. We can talk more about that experience if you want, but it was like, that was the kind of wake up time for me to look at my past and my childhood and see, okay, this wasn't normal. Like this stuff definitely has affected me. It's affected me how I see myself, feel about myself, look at the world, how I interact with the world. And I just wanted to dive into it, look at it, and that was the journey. I started journaling and writing and kind of just reflecting on my life and looking at everything, assessing it. And it's just been a healing journey ever since. Certain things from childhood trauma and experiences, neglect, abuse, violence, sometimes you don't even know that they mess with you until stuff triggers them. It's like we were talking about with my child. There were layers to that, to like my pain, I guess, or wounds that I've worked through and I've like spent a lot of time on, but there were other triggers that happened when my child was born that I was like, oh man, this is like, it made me realize maybe there was a lot more, even when I was like toddler and an infant, of like abuse and violence that I was absorbing at that age. So it was like crazy, like deep triggers on that kind of stuff. So it's a lifelong journey when you experience certain things in your such like impressionable and fragile years of life.
Yeah. And you feel that was normal as you got older. That's how you were dealing with conflict situations. So the only way you knew how to resolve conflict was through violence or forms of violence.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of became something I felt like I had to do. It was like when I was younger, I felt like I avoided fighting, but my brothers and I would fight all the time. But then like, it was like, it sounds bad, but the first time I hit someone in the face, like I had them on the ground. I remember I was in elementary school, and it was like, once I hit them once, I just like, I couldn't stop. It was like this like feeling of liberation, maybe because the way people were hurting me, and it was just that anger and rage where it's like, oh, now like I have the power to like do something. It felt like this weird power thing. And it just became, it started off with that release, I think, but then it became my identity. As I got older, it became who I was and how people expected me to react to situations. So I was like feeding on that of like, oh, I want to feel belonging. I want to feel like someone. So it's like I had skateboarding and I had this crazy violent persona or like reputation that I could like, I don't know, get recognized for, something that I would just like want to feed that. So that was this whole cycle of in itself. That was crazy to see that identity. When I look back at it, I started to like reflect on it. It was like, man, I felt like I needed something to prove. And once I started to get that reputation,
Interesting. I was just thinking, like, it's interesting how people have to hit like a rock bottom or have like a really pivotal moment in their life before they decide to make change. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had it as well. And I often think, like, why do things have to get really, really bad before they can get better? It seems like that's like the human condition. If you don't mind, can you maybe give us an account of the night you had that near-death experience and how it went down? And if I'm honest, I'm just curious to find out how someone can find themselves in a situation like that, and how it does go down so easily.
Yeah. Well, like, just to like preface it is, I mean, at that time in my life, I was, I was raging, and the people I was with and chose to be with at that time, they were certainly in the same mindset. We didn't, when there would be a conflict that occurred, there wasn't this point of like choice. We're like, okay, peaceful solution or violent solution. It was just reaction all the time. Or it was like, what are you looking at? Oh, fight. And just automatic. That was just who we were and how we, I think, engaged with the world around us wherever we were. So we were hanging out in this place, Ybor City. We saw some people that we knew from the skate park, and they're like, we're talking to them. We're just hanging out. And at this point in my life, I'd been into so many different situations that a random fight wouldn't surprise me, or there had been weapons in the past, like gunshots, all the like different circumstances. But so I wasn't necessarily intimidated by potential like conflict in situations that could be dangerous.
Yeah.
So there was these people that walked up and they were saying, like, there was some talk about a fight these people got into the weekend before that we were talking to. And then there was someone over by their car. It was kind of like a weird situation. And they said something to, like, they were kind of finding out whose car it was. But those dudes were telling us about a fight they got into the weekend before. And they beat up these people. And they were in that car. So we're thinking they had something to do with that. That's kind of the most we got out of that. So like the details of the story. But before, like, anything happened, all of a sudden there was 3 people that were off to the side that were lingering a little bit. And I told my friend, I was like, I think something's about to happen. I could just tell, I could feel their vibes. They're up to something. And then the guy said something to my friend, and he had a sprinkler head in his hand that he had before, because we almost got in a fight probably 30 minutes before with some other people. And all of a sudden we're just like, oh, ready to fight type vibe. So he hit that guy, and then there was a guy next to him that was just standing there. So I hit him, because at that point it was more like, if one of us goes, we all go. There was never a question asked. We didn't talk about it. It was just, that's what would happen. It was just a known, unknown, unspoken thing. So I hit the guy that was next to him, and then there was someone off to the side that came up behind me with a beer bottle and broke it over the back of my head. I didn't realize he was with them. And from there, it just unleashed. Like there were about 10 to 15 people across the street. There were people we were with. Some of them took off. Some of them just, I think, freaked out in the moment, didn't know what to do. So there's kind of like a couple of us really fighting where I feel like it was 10, 15 or more people. We didn't really, at that point, we started to split up, and I didn't know who was coming against me, who was like trying to fight me, who was just in the crowd, because it was a crowded place. It was like people hang out there. There's a lot of bars and clubs and restaurants and stuff like that. So it was a crowded downtown area. And then it got to the point where we're like fighting in the middle of the street. Cars are stopping. We're like kind of just people coming. You're fighting a couple people, a few more people come up, and there's this loose riot type situation. We all got split up. I got backed against this wall. There were a group of people in front of me, and I knew if they came at me against the wall, they're just going to beat me. I had to get into this group, out of here. I can't have my back against the wall and them just beat me down. So I started to fight my way through the group. As I was fighting my way through the group, like I felt someone kind of had a shirt on at this point. My shirt got pulled back, and I felt something go into my back, into my side, my chest, my other side. It was basically getting stabbed across the body as I was fighting through this group. I get out because I'm fighting. I'm just like throwing hands the best I can. And I get out of the group. My shirt's ripped off. I look down. I'm full on just covered in blood. I'm missing a shoe. And I look over, and my friend Scott was still fighting. So I start to kind of go where he's at. And the people he was fighting just kind of took off. People that were like coming at me, they left too, because at that point they realized they had stabbed us, so they needed to get out of there. He starts walking over, and he's cut from one side of his stomach to the other, just like full on cut open. And long story short, we end up getting our friend Chris that was in this doorway. We ended up getting him out of it, and he was stabbed in the lungs. So there was like his hands were like fingers were inside of the hole because his lung was punctured, and it was just spraying out blood. It was gnarly, full on movie scene. And our friend James got us out of there, and during the fight, that dude saved my life, because there's someone coming out behind me with a meat cleaver, like full on ready to chop the back of my head. And he like he saved my life. And, we all kind of saved each other, I think, in a lot of regard. But long story short, we end up in this parking lot waiting for the paramedic ambulance to get there, and I'm just laying next to my friend Chris. My friend Scott at this point had gotten to a vehicle with some like random people trying to help him, and he got rushed to the hospital. And we're laying there, and I'm just laying next to my friend, and my eyes started to flutter, like I was just felt like I was gonna faint. And in my mind, it just clicked in. Survivor was like, if your eyes close, you're dying. If your eyes close, you're dying. That's just what I kept saying to myself. So I'm holding my eyes with the palms of my hand up on my eyelids, like full on wide open, to try to keep them awake, like open, so I could still just concentrate on breathing and like working through it. And I could hear the sirens. So I'm like, they're almost here. They're almost here. And 2 paramedics show up, and like I go from laying on the ground just to like jumping up and running to the paramedic, because I'm so desperate to get help, and they start like working on me, and the paramedic kind of get me ready for the trauma unit at the hospital. I get there, they rush me back into the intensive care unit. Like already, I remember looking out of the ambulance doors when the doors open. It was like a scene of a movie where all these people with white jackets just come and grab the cart and start wheeling me down this hallway, and just lights are flashing. It was just like they show in the movie. It's wild. So they get me back there, and all these doctors and nurses are looking around me. They're staring down at me, and I'm totally freaking out at this point. Like, it was just, I was saying things like, I don't know, I don't want to die. And they're like, you're losing a lot of blood. You're in serious condition. You have to calm down. We have to figure out where all this blood's coming from. And it was weird because at that point I felt afraid, and it was weird because it's like most people think, yeah, of course you would feel afraid. But up into that point in my life, I didn't care if I lived or died. I was suicidal multiple times. It wasn't like I wanted to necessarily live. I just didn't know how to live, And so death wasn't scary to me. But then all of a sudden I'm feeling like, oh, I might be dying right now. So I got this fear. I'm like, oh, maybe I do want to live. Like there was this crazy paradox of emotions going on inside. And then they're all crowded around me, and there was a chaplain that came over. And at that point, this is it. Okay, so I guess what do they pray over me as I'm dying? Is this how it's going down? And I was losing, I just was kind of like submitting to it a little bit. Like, okay, this could be happening. And he put his hand on my head as this chaplain and said, everything's going to be okay, son. All of a sudden, it was this peace where there's this experience that it was so calming. All of a sudden, I felt like, okay, I'm going to be okay. I'm okay. I'm not alone. I'm going to be fine. And I remember looking at the clock. It was almost 2:30, after 2:30 something, and then I just kind of blanked out. I was still alert. I was conscious. I heard everything that was going on. I lay there. I didn't say another word. I just was just feeling like, okay, everything's going to be okay. Next thing you know, they're like, okay, you're done. We're taking you to the recovery, blah, blah, blah. And looked up, and it was I don't know, almost 8 o'clock or something. 6.5 hours later, they were just working on me. And I was just cool with it. I knew everything was going to be okay. And turned out I was stabbed 9 times. Then I spent time in the hospital just reflecting, and that's where it all started hitting me, where I was like, I need to see what's going on with my life. I need to look at my life. I'm obviously something kept me here. I'm here for a reason. I didn't die. So I just started to ask bigger questions of myself. And obviously it was, it didn't just click overnight, but that was just, I didn't want to see anyone in the hospital. I just wanted I had a friend get me, go get my notebook, and I just started writing and journaling, and just diving into all the crazy emotions that came from that trauma, but also all the emotions and pain that was coming up from the past that made me realize that is why I got there. It was all choices. It's not like the experience I had as a young person made me go there. I chose to put myself in situations that could potentially kill me.
Wow, man. Wow, Ricky. Far out, man. What a story. Seriously,
Dude, it
bro.
was wild.
It's wild.
It was wild.
I mean, I just was living it with you, and I was just sort of thinking, how do you not know you've been stabbed 9 times? But I realized, you're in the heat of the moment,
Adrenaline.
The chaos, the adrenaline, and then the paramedics having to, find where the stab wounds are. These are the...
Well, it was the doctors and nurses that I kept hearing them say, oh, we found another one. We found another one. I'm just like, wow. There were people would joke around afterwards and called me a pincushion or something like that. Because I had so many pokes, man. It was, but when it's happening, I would blank out when I would fight, and it would go into survival mode. It's just, and then the adrenaline and all that stuff. Adrenaline's a crazy thing, but as it started to go away and come down, I was in a lot of pain. And then of course the recovery it just felt like my body felt like I lay down on the ground and someone just beat me with a bat, because the trauma of the punctures, it was just everything was sore. It was intense.
But then you realized, in those really scary moments when you were hang on, I could be done here. Then you had a moment of clarity where you realized that life is worth living.
Yeah.
So would you say that was your biggest lesson out of that experience?
Absolutely. And also that, you know, every day is a gift. It was like, I always knew how fragile life was before, but I mean, I was hanging out that day. I got to think I was 17, man. It's not like I was a grown adult and knew, I mean, I still had, I'm like, I was a kid. Obviously now I can say I was at that age, I didn't feel like a kid at all, but I was only 17. It's still so much to learn and understand, you know, but that day it was, you know, just hanging out. It's not like I was planning on going to the hospital for a while when I decided I'm like running up to, and it had to happen. It was something that had to happen to me for a reason, I believe. But, you know, I was going up to my house. My friends were dropping me off, and I just all of a sudden was like, oh, wait, no, I want to go with you guys. And next thing you know, I'm in the hospital that same night, where I was like, I was at home on my front door, ready to go. Like, see you guys later. I'll see you tomorrow. And then I just changed my mind.
Were you guys drinking that night? Was there alcohol involved?
I wasn't. There was alcohol with some of the friends, but I wasn't that night. Just for whatever reason. I don't think I was. I definitely don't remember like it being one of those raging nights for me or anything. I mean, not to at that age, I was drinking that I shouldn't have been. I was underage, obviously, but you know, I was. I can't remember that night for sure. I don't think so, though.
So, I mean, thank you for like re-sharing that story. I mean, it's very engaging to listen to. I was like hanging off your every word in this sort of sick voyeuristic way, I must admit. Like, and do you find when you think about that situation, does it trigger you? Does it trigger the old emotions and the feelings? Or have you done enough work on yourself now to separate yourself and move beyond those feelings?
It was something I had to start talking about a lot to get through a lot of the feelings, you know, and to get some healing around it. I can't say that I can 100%. I mean, I'm at peace with it, and I've dealt with it, but you know, I still have symptoms from PTSD and those types of things. It's just kind of part of the deal, I think, with me after experiencing that. But I've obviously worked on that and continue to work on that. Just there's a whole process of even being comfortable in public after that, you know. But anyways, but just to answer your question about the trigger, I can't say that I don't feel anything. You know, it's just almost impossible to not. I like have to let myself get into the moment and the best I can in order to share the story. You know, so I certainly still feel it, but it's not a trigger to the point where it makes me uncomfortable or anything, or like causes any rippling effects from like getting into that space.
Yeah, interesting, man. So, how did your life unfold from that day? So, going into your early 20s, you know, is that when the journey started? Is this when did you really start to disassociate from that lifestyle? Did you start seeking help with your anger issues, maybe? Can you give us an insight into what happened after that?
Yeah, I was telling you, just started really pouring into writing in my journal and like, spending a lot of time there writing.
Is that when it
being
started?
vulnerable? Yeah.
Well, when did did the writing start after that incident, like the journal writing?
I was dabbling in it before. Like I had a notebook where I write ideas and thoughts, but in the hospital, I really started to like open myself up to it. And afterwards, I let myself get vulnerable with stuff that I would never even write because I didn't want to think about it long enough to write it, you know, stuff that I needed to unpack. And then there were some other experiences that kind of happened afterwards where I started to pull away from the lifestyle a bit, but then I got kind of into some other situations where I was like, man, this is like, I was already looking at my life on feeling like I had a chance, like almost like this second chance thing, and wanted to do better with it. But there was, it takes a little while to untangle things sometimes. And then as I got further along, I still was skateboarding, a lot. At that point, I started skateboarding by myself more than ever, just because I didn't like being around people a lot. And I just felt like very withdrawn. I was dealing with the PTSD. It was just, and then the first time in my life, I was dealing with the emotions that I've been hiding and burying for so long. It's a lot of late hours at night by myself. And then I started boxing, and that helped me curve and channel a lot. Like, it just helped me. What boxing helped me do is learn that I didn't have anything to prove, and it like helped me manage my anger, like tame the lion a lot more. And it like that came to an ending point where I was in my early 20s, I think it was. And I was just sharing this with a story with a friend at the skate park a couple days ago. And my friend was about to get in a fight. And at that point I was training for an amateur fight. Like, I was in good fighting condition. I felt very confident in my abilities. I like was comfortable in the ring all the time, especially even more comfortable with someone that's not a trained fighter, like in this just regular street. It's just one of those things. You get comfortable with being in a fighting situation. So they almost got in a fight, and like I was trying to break it up, and it was in Ybor, strangely enough, this full circle experience. So I'm in Ybor in this like drunk situation. I wasn't drinking. I was getting ready for this tournament.
Excuse me.
Same exact area.
Okay.
It was like maybe a couple buildings down from where the stabbing has. And this is
bad energy there.
17, say like early 20s, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years later or something. And it was with a really good friend. And I think it was one of those, like, I wasn't even going out much then, but maybe it was his birthday and I was just kind of going out with him type deal. And he almost gets in a fight with this person. I'm trying to break it up, and the dude just like caught me with this really soft drunk jab, right? And I looked at him, I looked at my friends, and of course my friend and a couple people he was with was like, oh, like they were expecting what they knew of Ricky to come out, because like that's just what was known of like people who knew me in that era. And I just looked at everyone. I looked at the dude and smiled and grabbed my friend and turned and just walked away. I was like, let's go, man. And it was the first time I felt strong enough in myself to be able to walk away knowing that I didn't have anything to prove. My life wasn't in danger. The people I was with wasn't, and their life wasn't in danger. So it was like, whatever, man, cool. You like jabbed me with this weak punch. Like, I'm good. See you later. Have a good night.
And you broke the cycle, bro. You broke the cycle.
And I'm telling you, I felt more in control and better about myself than I ever did about any fight I ever got into. It was so that was the last time I even came close to a like altercation in the streets or whatever. I mean, now I got to the point where I know enough to know that like I'm just remove myself out of the situation within seconds if I feel like there's any potential of it going in any direction I don't need to be a part of, You
can read it. You can read the situation pretty well.
Yeah.
Man, that's so rad to hear, because breaking the cycle of that sort of behavior is so hard. Like, and when you've learnt those survival mechanisms and techniques as such a young person, because that's what they are. They're tools for survival. They don't work when you're an adult. They actually may have worked when you're a little kid, when you are fighting to survive. But so many dudes try to bring those same survival tools into their adult life, and it really doesn't work. And there's a lot of dudes in jail that are like, oh man, I really wish I didn't throw that last punch.
Yeah.
And I remember my father told me an amazing story before he passed away. He was telling me about he was having conflict with some guy, and he hated him and they hated each other, and And one night he's seen him, and he was gonna, like, they got into like a heated argument, and he was gonna king hit him. He was just gonna hit him, and he decided not to, and he just walked away. But then he found out a week later, and the guy found out as well. That guy he was going to hit had a brain tumor, right?
Oh.
And he didn't know. He got diagnosed with a brain tumor, and he says to me, he goes, "I often think about it." He goes, "Imagine I hit that dude, and he's got a brain tumor, and I could have killed him instantly, and he was so delicate, and he didn't even know how delicate he was." And he said it just changed everything because, he grew up in violence as well. He was a migrant he grew up in a migrant family in Australia, in the 60s and 70s, and on the streets of Sydney. So had to survive. And unfortunately, and his father, my grandfather was violent, and my father was violent, and it's just this like default mechanism. And then to hear you tell a story about how you were confronted with a situation where you've only known one way to deal with that situation, and then you made a conscious decision, not to do it the same. That's just like instant redemption, brother. It's so nice to hear. So, man, thanks for sharing that. Really inspired.
Happy to, man.
Yeah. So listen, man. So you said that the journal writing started after that. How did that then evolve into you wanting to write a book? Like, did you just get some of your ideas or memoirs and put them into your first book, or?
No, I was probably, I think, in my early 20s where I found myself on this cycle where I would go out to the coast every evening and like journal. I'd watch the sunset, just reflect. I was like deep in my healing at that point, and like just like kind of unpacking stuff in my psyche and thinking about the ways I saw myself and like not believing in myself for so long. So I would go, then leave there and go to this bookstore. It's called Barnes and Nobles here in the States. And then, do they have those?
We have similar, not Barnes and Noble, but we have a similar chain of bookstores.
So I would go and I was writing a similar like thought process in this journal. It's kind of on the same. It was the first time I felt like I was on this lineage with a direction, or like the thought was carrying forward more than just one day of, because I try to do at least 3 pages, so it was like, oh, this is a couple weeks in, I'm still kind of on the same idea and these thoughts, and they're starting to break up, into sections. So I was writing every day. And then at some point there was someone that worked in the store that asked me along the way, they'd ask what I was doing. I was like, oh, I'm just writing. Because I'm going every night. So I started to get noticed. And at some point she asked me what I was doing. Someone else asked me, and I just looked at her. I said, I'm writing a book. And it just kept going from there. And then one day I just felt like I finished it. I stopped writing it, printed it out and read through it because I was writing it by hand, and then started to clean it up and made a binded copy of it. And I feel like this is it. It was just me telling myself what I wanted someone to tell me, but then I wanted to share it with other people to tell them, all the things I thought I heard more of or wanted to hear more of. And then I let a friend read it, and he was pretty hyped on. I'm like, oh, it's a friend. He's going to be cool. He's I don't know if he's being honest or not. I've kind of questioned it because, we're homies. I mean, he said he was being honest, but you know how that goes. You're a homie. So let me let a few other people read it. And I started letting a few other people read it. And then at that point I was getting good feedback, and then connected with this publisher that I heard about and started to I just sent it to them, and they ended up choosing to publish it. We're on board to give me a chance as an unknown writer. And so I pursued that. I actually had my first book signing at that Barnes and Nobles where I was writing the book. That was my first thing. It was such a cool situation to know I'd been writing the book there. And then, just one book led to another where it was like different phases in my life where I was looking at certain sort of life philosophies and reflections, and that just became the nature of that book. And it's been this evolution. I didn't know after the first book I'd even write a second one. And then by the time I got to the third one, the person I was with, because I left my publisher after 5 books, and that's a whole story in itself. But at that point, the kind of rep I had or whatever, I'm like marketing person, was like, yeah, I mean, 1 book, kind of everyone has a book in them too. And then 3 is like, you're looked at way different now. Like we see you, like this is your 3rd book. Like they became like, I got more credibility with them from that point. So yeah, it's just been this evolution, man. But it's all, I don't ever write with the idea of wanting to tell someone how to live their life or what to do or how to be or anything. I just share my reflections and the things that have helped me with the intent of like just helping someone else or like lifting the door or the layers for someone to like dive deeper in whatever it might be. And maybe it's only 1 page out of the book. Maybe they don't like half of it, but there's certain things that speak to them. I try to write my book short to the point because I always like reading shorter books. It just keeps my attentions better that way. So I write like I like to read, basically.
Rad. I love that. Like, there is so much power to that whole notion of like sharing your story with the hope that someone identifies with some aspects, and then that provides healing to that person. And I've learnt this a lot with the podcast because I've just had moments with it where I'll be speaking to a guest and I would have never really thought that I would identify with them in a lot of ways, and then they'll say something, and the way something happened for them was exactly how I needed to hear it. And then sometimes a guest will share a story, and I'll have a listener reach out to me and say, oh my God, I can't believe this happened to so-and-so, because that's exactly how it happened to me, and I've never ever heard that happen to anyone else. And it's this like immediate removal of isolation. You don't feel isolated in that thought anymore.
Yeah.
So would you say like that's what you're going for with your books, correct?
Yeah, letting people obviously know they're not alone, and obviously just encouraging people, inspiring people, and everything I do. Where the latest skateboarding, it's a little different from where my other books have been, like more intentional to like inspire and transform, wherever. That one's more tribute, where people who skate can identify like that validation. Really, it's like yeah, like a head nod type. But anyways, in everything I do, I do it with the philosophy of just to reach one is to reach them all, because I have a sister that passed away, and she OD'd years ago, and she's read some of my books. I've talked to her, encouraged her, try to lift her up, whatever, and I couldn't change her. I couldn't change her life. And when she passed, I felt super guilty. Like, man, I've spent so many hours and years of my life devoted to helping other people and sacrificing and like giving and giving and giving. But like, here is my sister. I feel like, she was in pain, and I couldn't do anything about it as much as I wanted to, as much as I wanted to help her. And she was dealing with, her own childhood stuff that just wasn't healed, wasn't addressed. And when she passed, there was a lot of guilt that came from it. Like, I actually talked to her in the morning, and I was supposed to call her back that day. We didn't have the best conversation. I never called her back. The next morning is when I heard she died. So there was a lot of layers of guilt. And anyways, what I came to in that situation of peace is, it was like it came over me like, I can't help everyone. I can't change everyone. I can't reach everyone. Even sometimes the people I want to the most, my own family, the people closest to me. And that's where I like just kind of found my peace in adopting that philosophy, is to reach one is to reach them all. It's not about reaching everyone. It's not about like having that impact that you want to have on every single person that reads my book or every single person that hears your podcast. It's that one person, because if you reach that one person, to me, that's like the world. That's everyone, because to them, that is everyone, because that's their world, so that's what it's all about. It's always worth it to me. Everything I do, the hours I spend into like releasing a book to the world, being vulnerable about what's in it. If one person gains from it, one person's moved, one person's inspired, then it's all worth it every time.
Dude, Ricky, yes, thank God there's people like you in the world, man.
Likewise, man, likewise.
And I'm gonna hit you with something to put you on the spot a little bit. From a practical perspective, and you are putting your vulnerability and yourself out there and hours of writing, like on a practical sort of note, are you able to sustain a lifestyle from that? And how do you, and I guess my question is, sorry, how do you balance that? Because,
like right now, honestly, it's like, well, I'm rippling. I'm dealing with rippling effects from the pandemic. Before the pandemic, so have my regular book sales, right? Like just passively or whatever, people on Amazon or whatever it might be, and that's good, and I'm super grateful. It's enough to cover part of my societal existence. The other part mainly would come from like speaking gigs, or sometimes I'd go to a conference or something like that, or a school, and get paid really well, to be a speaker, keynote, whatever it might be. The other part that was really picking up a lot of momentum before the pandemic was I was had some support and opportunities to get a lot of copies of my fifth book, which is for young people, middle school to in high school, into large amounts, like a lot of over 10,000 young people that like been able to get those books. So there would be large bulk purchases of like, 1,000, 2,000, 2,500, whatever, for like all of full schools. And
as
the pandemic just shut that down.
Yeah.
That, like, it was like I went to one school, finishing up, and like just kind of planning on the next one that was like moving forward, all the mementos going. So it's just like been adjusting and be like patiently waiting to see how these things are unfolding. And then like every time I thought things were picking back up, like another thing shut down. So there's been a lot more pressure on like just book sales to help sustain, my part of like the contributions to our household. And it's definitely like in a transition period right now, an adjustment. But if there's one thing I know, because I've been at this whole like independent thing for a while, I can tell you more about it. I also started an organization, and that was part of this stuff in schools, like a movement of valuing others. But along this way, it's my last regular job, if you would. It's been quite some time now, and things have always worked out. There's always an opportunity that comes up. There's always like a door that opens when I least expect it, So I continue just waking up and giving of myself and putting that energy out there and trusting in things to continue opening up.
Dude, amazing. I don't know. I love to hear that. I just love to hear it because it's really obvious that you're someone who's living your truth. Like you're living life on your terms. You're living your dream, not someone else's dream. And it seems like, if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like your dream and your vision is to help others and a life of service.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful thing. But then and that's what I want to do, if I'm honest. But the practical side of me says, I'm too scared to step into that just that alone, because oh no, what happens if, I can't make ends meet,
It's a ride, man.
Right.
So the first time, talking about things working out, I left this organization I was at. I was in the car business for several years, and I ended up walking away from that because it wasn't my passion. I lost a bunch of money. I kind of had to start over in life, That was after writing my second book, What Really Matters. I'm looking at life. It's like I was starting to do really well in the eyes of the world, but I wasn't happy. I'm like, what does all this stuff matter if it's like I'm not fulfilled? And at the end of it, I don't even know if I'm going to live until whatever. It was just this whole, and I was knowing people with loads of money passing away and friends dying and different people around me. So after I wrote that book, it was time to go, and dissolved everything I had, like business agreements and stuff. And I was buying this business at the time. Well, anyway, several years later, I was working for this organization, and they were great to me. I learned a lot. I met a lot of great people. And it was time for me I just felt like more and more I needed to do my own thing. This isn't my truth. And so I left. And when I was leaving, my bosses asked me, what are you going to do? Are your books going to give you enough to live? I said, not right now. They're not. But I feel like until I start putting myself fully into it, it's not going to go to the level I need it to go to anyway. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. I just know I need to do it. And I took that leap of faith, and it was 2 weeks later, I had some program buy 1,000 copies of my first book for kids, and it just random things were happening. So, right now, to answer your question, honestly, I'm just kind of in that waiting period and trust period of I know something is on the edge of happening. And when you take a path outside of the standard direction of things, it tends to look glamorized on the outside, and it looks like, oh man, that would be awesome. But there's a lot that comes with it. It's a wild ride. And but I'm grateful, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So yeah, it's a trip, because you never know where things are coming from. You don't know, I don't know how many people are going to be interested in my books that care enough to spend their hard-earned money to buy them. I don't know, where right now the speaking gig thing, that was always where I never knew what was going to be in my inbox, because any day I could get an invite to go. But that's been, kind of silenced quite a bit. But things are always changing, and where one thing's not working out, something else does. And that's just kind of that's been the ride so far, anyways.
But you're busy though. You're not just sitting idle waiting for things to happen. You're also,
no, I always have. Yeah.
That's the thing what people forget too, that in a lot of ways you're probably making your own luck as well by exploring options.
Yeah.
You're not just sitting on your ass waiting for these opportunities to come to you either.
No way.
And I think that's a really important thing to highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a section in my seventh book, It's Far From Easy, and it's what it takes to make your dreams a reality. And it's the real talk about this is what this path really looks like. And it is taking action's a huge part of it, just even us being on this podcast, this doesn't happen on its own. We had to interact, we had to message, we had to, I reached out to you, we engaged. It's just kind of these things don't happen on their own. Your podcast doesn't just go to Spotify and everywhere else on its own. There's always something to do, It's definitely not just sitting here with my hands up and my legs crossed,
But
waiting.
This is why I fall in love with people like you, Ricky, because you're taking the road less travelled, and these struggles are the struggles of change makers. These are the struggles of successful people, and I think a lot of and I don't know how you define success, but in my eyes, I see a successful person, whether I don't know your monetary situation, I don't really know your lifestyle situation, but anyone I see who's living their truth and seems content with that, I just fall in love with. And I can see such a contentment in you, Ricky. You seem so at peace. And, you said something to me when we had a phone call before we even started. You said, this was the other day before we recorded, you said, because I sort of said, oh, do you want to be on this to promote your book? And the reason I ask that is because I do get requests for that all the time, like people coming with these motives of, they want to sell their book. And I'm not against that too. I want to support entrepreneurs and creatives 100%. But you just said something that was a bit different. You go, I don't even want to talk about the book if you don't want to talk about it. It's like that you're the first person that's ever said that to me, and I was like, yep, this guy, man, this guy. And also, you're a skateboarder, and you're around my age, and I love guys that skate at our age as well. So
yeah, man,
yeah.
It's not about that's where it's like like I said then, I just want to have a good conversation, positive conversation that could possibly help someone else, impact someone else. That's what it's all about. And I think that's been like you talk about the road less traveled. It's man, it's something that I feel it got to a point where I felt like I couldn't not do it. And I'm just super grateful for everyone along the way that's helped me be able to do it, because ultimately, it's not about me. It's just about like who I may be able to help along the way in whatever capacity that is, whatever that looks like, and you're talking about what defines success. I was actually talking with my wife about this the other day. I said, I don't really know what what type of material life I'll give Everest, which was our son's name. It's like, that's not what matters to me. Obviously he'll always eat good foods and healthy foods and have access to the things he needs. But in terms of like material things, like those financial success or whatever, I don't really know what that looks like. I trust that it looks great, but what I do know for sure is that he will be wealthy and wildly rich in love and support and affection and nurturing him, and just like just guidance and that family unit. And that to me, it was like, because we're becoming his story right now as he gets older. Like I tell my story. I grew up with abusive parents and I grew up in poverty, but I also know, being in poverty, that it wasn't about the things people had. It was about the love that they experienced and the parents that they had that loved and cared about them and supported them, that I missed the most. So it not to say that my son's going to go without, but just saying like the success of it all for me is him experiencing that love and support. And the success for me ultimately is living my truth and being happy with the person that I am, and that's a daily thing for me to work on, to make sure that I'm happy looking in the mirror, and I'm happy with the choices that I'm making. I'm happy with the way I'm treating people, happy with the way I interact with strangers at the store. And if I'm not happy with it, then I look at myself and see where I need to change so I can be.
Yes, man. Yes, Ricky. Yes. Listen, man.
Amen, brother.
I want to ask you something. I want to ask you something else. Like, okay, so what advice would you give to 17-year-old Ricky if you could?
17-year-old Ricky? I would just let him know that he's valued, and that's kind of where that organization I started. It's called You Are Valued. It's a movement of valuing others. That it started the fundamental belief that when people don't know they're valued and see the value in who they are and see like their worth, then they're more likely to make bad choices, hurt themselves or hurt other people. And I would just let him know that he's loved, he's important, that he matters, that he means something, and that he doesn't have anything to prove, that there's, because when you grow up without love and support, when you can't even get the people who are supposed to love you, you feel like you have to fight for it everywhere else in the world. And that's what I would tell him, is that you don't have to fight to be loved. You deserve to be loved.
Yes, man. Yes. So true. Yeah. Well, listen, Ricky, man, it's been so epic.
Likewise.
I'm so grateful for you. Listen, I ask all guests to come to the podcast like with a cause they want to support or advocate for. I'm guessing maybe it's your movement or your. Or did you have something else for you?
Yeah, I've definitely put some. There's some others that I'm really passionate about. Obviously, You Are Valued is just something that's always been. It's just a passion of mine to continue to spread those ripples of kindness and that movement of valuing others. But there's a organization I recently connected with. It's called 6 Feet Above. That I'm stoked on. It's an organization that facilitates groups of like service people and veterans in different capacities, and introduces them and helps them bond through skateboarding. Like some of them may skate, some of them may not, but they like have retreats essentially where they get together to talk about things, and it's mainly to prevent suicide, in veterans, which is a really high rate because of PTSD and because of me being suicidal and relating to PTSD symptoms. Not that I know what they deal with or what any of them deal with, but it's like something that speaks to me a lot. And the power of skateboarding to heal is just phenomenal, So I'm stoked on them. And, another one I really like is that Four Oceans. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're driven. They're not a nonprofit, but they're a intentional business. I forget how they classify their actual business, but essentially they're driven to remove plastic out of the ocean. It started from these two surfers that were on a trip in Bali, and they saw how bad the plastic issue was, and they make these bracelets and products that you can buy that goes to taking plastic, that run in their crews of boats to literally take thousands and hundreds of thousands of pounds of plastic waste out of the ocean, which, that's just, it's heart-wrenching to think about how poorly we've treated the earth, and especially, in the ocean in this regard. So I'm happy to see anyone making those initiatives to keep the ocean and the waterways as clean as possible for all life,
That's amazing, Ricky. With your latest book, Thank You Skateboarding, here's a question for you. Tell me why a non-skater would like that book.
Many reasons. It would give an insight into if they don't know, if they're not a skateboarder, it would give a very valuable insight, I think, into skateboarding, what it actually means beyond those people you might see in a public place that are dirty and sweaty and have holes in their clothes or in their busted up shoes. I think it helps, gives a sense of appreciation for how much is actually involved in what people who do skate take away from it, and how those positive aspects manifest into so many other areas of their lives. But beyond giving that I think valuable insight, it could connect to something that they may care about, that they may have that sense of appreciation for, that has impacted their life, in a different way. I mean, to mislead anyone, I wrote it for skateboarders and people who support skateboarders. It wasn't like And that was something when I was writing it, every one of my books prior is a little more open and honest, but this was like, okay, should I just make it more like broad to where it's like, but then I felt it on my heart that because of what skateboarding has done for me and my life at this point, and skateboarding in general, the skateboarding community worldwide, I just felt like it's something that I wanted to write for all of us and put into words and write that tribute, so I kept it. It was like I drew that line, like this is for skateboarding.
Rad. The reason I asked that is because with the podcast, I'm not a skateboarding podcast, but I do love skateboarding, and I tend to gravitate towards skaters and surfers because I surf a lot as well. Likewise.
I didn't know you surf, but I kind of assume. I haven't surfed as much in this last year and a half. I've been out of the cycle a little bit, but surfing is special to my heart.
Is there surf near you, Florida?
It's like 2.5 hours away.
Okay.
So there is surf on our coast, but it's not as consistent. A lot of driving. It's just this season in life, I'm like accepting it. It's just, the charging aspect of my life is a little shadowed right now, but it's just a season. I love surfing. I'll definitely spend time in the water for the rest of my life as long as I can.
Same. It's done so much for my health and well-being, surfing. The act of surfing, obviously, I like as well. I don't actually like the act of surfing as much as I like the act of skateboarding. But surfing, just the connection it gives me to the environment and the ocean, I just have to be in it as much as I can. It does so much for my mental health. It's just, I can't even explain it. And I've heard so many theories about why it helps your mental health. The combination of the salt water, the seawater, apparently has a mineral in it, magnesium. That's a natural muscle relaxant. And then you've got the vitamin D from the sun, and combined together, the magnesium unlocks the vitamin D, and it just builds your immunity. And then there's the cardiovascular aspect of it. It's just such a good thing to do for your body. It's just amazing, So, the other thing I was going to sort of mention too was that Florida has produced the greatest surfer of all time. You know that, don't you? Kelly Slater, man.
So much respect. Man, I love seeing it.
It's crazy.
I love it. I love it because we're close to the same age. So for me to see that type of that level of performance at his age, and there's some pro skateboarders that I see regularly that is the same thing for me. And we were talking before the show with Chris Markovich and seeing people like these Tony Hawk still shredding. But anyways, Kelly Slater specifically winning pipe at 49, almost 50 is.
But dude, I've been checking your stuff. I've been checking your stuff out on Instagram, and I noticed that you skate with Chris Markovich a lot. If you don't mind, I sort of just picked up on that through some of your clips and stuff. And he's blowing my mind as well. I think he's older than us, and it just and I was watching you. I think we're the same age, mid-40s, and I see Kelly Slater win that, and I just think these days, if you know how to these are products. These are the gifts of good living. You get to do your passion at the age of 50 or longer. I watched Chris Markovich, skating and ripping because he was one of my favorite skaters growing up. I used to love how he skated.
Shredding.
Yeah, and it's this motivates me so much just to live a righteous and healthy life, and we have so much information we can hack into different, health and wellness ideas for longevity, and I just think, why not? Let's do it.
I'm with you. It just becomes more and more motivating. Where it's just it all becomes those lifestyle choices as you get older become more and more important. And if you make the right ones, you're setting yourself up for. It's not just about being able to do things as you get older. It's about the quality of life that doing those things fosters and cultivates, so that's what it's all about for me. I just want to be able to do the things that I love as long as I possibly can. I joke with people all the time. I have 6-year-old skate goals. Like, I just joke with people, like, I want to be able to do a 360 flip when I'm 60. That's just, I just want to be able to do that.
Let's go. Dude, you rip.
So,
I've been watching you skate so good, and I'm like, I'm going to ask you this, like, after a lifetime of skateboarding, like, do you love it more than ever?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, I didn't even think that was possible, because skateboarding was my first love. It was my first experience with love, and like my understanding of, like, oh, this is what it means to love, like really be in love with something,
Yeah.
and to still, like, over 30 plus years, of course it's come and gone at certain phases of my life where there are chunks of time where maybe it was like, oh, once a month, once every couple months, or when I was really having a surf, maybe I don't, it just more times would go apart. But to think that I can love something more now than when I started so long ago is
amazing.
It's really, it's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal.
I'm super grateful. And I think that there's a renaissance of people our age experiencing the same thing. They're like, wait a second, maybe in your 30s you feel like you have to let it go a little bit because you're getting into more whatever as adulthood happens, and you're just like, it's like you almost feel like, I don't know, there was a phase where maybe I just felt like at a certain point you just had to let it go. And they were like, I would fight myself to feel like I would have to be okay with letting it go at some point, like dealing with these layers of depression because of it almost. Where now I think there's just this understanding, like, no, we don't have to let this go ever. Like, why? Just because when we were kids, we saw people that were 40 that, like, they didn't do anything. There was no, like, they weren't skating or whatever it was, at least from my eyes back when I was younger. And like now to know, like, no, we can change this whole deal. It's not over.
Yeah.
It's just getting started in a lot of ways.
Well, we were told to grow up, what are you writing that thing for, and it's like, why are you writing that stupid toy? And it's like, we've got to thank people like, Kelly Slater with surfing, and Tony Hawk, and Chris Markovich, and Day One Song inspires me with all what he's doing, and
dude, Willie Santos.
Willie Santos, yeah,
he's shredding. And this dude Will Nugent that has a pro board for Willie's workshop right now that he could guest for. He's just, I just get excited. I honestly, like you said, anyone as they're older, like in their 40s, I respect everyone skateboarding, not to like mess that up, but like, as people are getting older, if they're doing anything, if they're on, they don't have to be ripping. If they're just making the time to be on the board or making the time to do something they love, it stokes me out. It just makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I listened to an interview with Jamie Thomas a while back, and, someone said to him in the interview, like, oh, I'm too old to skate, like, and or I'm too, it hurts too much, or my knees hurt, or I'm too, I've got a bad back. And Jamie's just like, well, just roll around and see what your body manifests, and you'll start to become in touch with your body, and your body will start to tell you what you're still capable of, But if you don't do that, you're never going to know, and it's just wasted talent, So anyway, man. Now listen, brother.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I love this, man. So if you scroll down in this episode, there's links to the You Are Valued movement that Ricky has, the cause that he's advocated for, 6 feet above. There's also a link to Ricky's website where you can find some of his books. And also I'll put links there to Amazon for some of his books as well. There's also the Four Oceans link initiative that, Ricky's also advocating for. So, get on, check it all out with some of the causes. Go and see if you can donate or be of service. And once more, I'll advocate for Habitat for Humanity. Please go and volunteer. They're an international NGO, so they're non-government, they're non-for-profit. and they're a beautiful organisation. And, man, yeah, you can find this episode on terriblehappytalks.com. But you can also find it on all the major podcasting platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Buzzsprout, Podcast Addict, Overcast. There's a bunch, but whatever platform you prefer to listen on, please subscribe and, maybe leave a review. That's always cool too. But either way, if you don't do those things, I'm just grateful that you're here listening right now. So thank you. And man, that's it, Ricky. You want to finish on anything special, brother?
Love it, man. Just good stuff all around. I guess if I could finish on anything to encourage people, if, when it comes to introducing causes to them, which Habitat for Humanity is amazing, by the way. I back that too. I always encourage people, even if it's not about a cause or if there's not a cause they connect with in their heart, just make their own cause just to do something nice for someone, do something nice for themselves, and spread some kindness, because that's the cause that we can all get behind for free anywhere we are.